Hello. Hi. I'm just going to see here as well if anyone pops on so I can check any comments. How are we all today? Okay, there we go. So welcome everybody to the 3-day Selfish System Masterclass. If you don't know me, I'm Emily Katz, and I'm a wellness consultant, coach, and mentor. And I actually wanted to jump right in and kind of kick us off with a definition of wellness, because those of you who do know me, I love getting very clear on the definitions of words, because language semantics plays a big part in my work as well, how we interpret things and how we learn. And so yes, wellness, if you didn't know, is the quality or state of being healthy in body and mind, especially as the result of deliberate effort. Okay, so I actually also wanted to kind of deconstruct that a little bit. The quality and state of being healthy in body and mind. I looked up healthy. Beneficial to one's physical, mental, or emotional state. Conducive to or associated with good health or reduced risk of disease. So I was looking at good health. What's health? Like the actual definition of health is state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. How many of you knew that it wasn't just about being free of illness and disease? Health is complete physical, mental, and social well-being. The definition of well-being is the state of feeling healthy and happy. So it's like healthy goes background to healthy, but happy is feeling or showing pleasure or contentment, having a sense of trust and confidence in a person, arrangement, or situation. So feeling happy with yourself means that you have a sense of trust and confidence in yourself. And all of this ties into wellness. Okay, so wellness, like the long version now, based on all these definitions, is the quality or state of being in complete physical, mental, and social pleasure, contentment, with a sense of trust and confidence in oneself, not just merely the absence of disease and infirmity, and all the result of deliberate effort. So, as you can see, it's a little bit more than what we originally just kind of thought wellness would mean, right? That there's a lot that goes under wellness. Deliberate, because a lot of us don't know what kind of effort or how to be deliberate about the efforts that we make. And this is literally the area that I focus on with my model, right? So and my model, we will be covering it, we will deep dive into it tomorrow. It is basically foundation and framework. That is of wellness. That's like what we'll cover tomorrow, and that's what my model focuses on. So it is very much education. It is filling in this knowledge gap to take deliberate effort and have complete mental and physical health and happiness. Okay. And yes, this is a lifelong endeavor. So for those of you here that thought that this will be a quick fix kind of thing, sorry to rain on that parade, but it is a lifelong endeavor, right? It is a lifestyle. It is a conscious, deliberate, intentional, daily choice of wanting to prioritize your own health and your own happiness. It gets easier because it becomes like autopilot, right? It becomes automatic. And that's what we're going to talk about today as well. Conditioning is something we're going to focus on. It's harnessing your human potential and the social conditioning piece, the conditioning piece in general. Okay. So how do we harness human potential? Just quickly, I wanted to recap. I hope you guys watched the video that I posted yesterday of the intro and pre-work. So if not, you can go and catch up on that one quickly. But today we will be focusing on, it's a mindset piece, basically, right? How to harness human potential, how to go about it, this deliberate effort piece. And it's going to be touching on social conditioning. Tomorrow will be the model, and then Tuesday we're going to be focusing back on mindset again, which is committing to yourself, the CEO self, I like to call it. So it's like mindset, model, mindset. It's going to be like a little sandwich, okay? Because it really, really is important when it comes to the deliberate effort piece. It is about how you approach it. It's going to be so much easier for you if you have a specific mindset about it. Okay, so let's get started. Today, those of you who have done the pre-work, by the way, I want you to keep in the back of your mind what it is that we focused on yesterday, that we asked yesterday, the questions. I have the prompts here. What is the one behavior or pattern that you would like to change? Okay, and there are a few more prompts, but I want you to focus on that as we go, okay, because there's going to be some references to that. So I want you to keep in the back of your mind. Okay. When it comes to potential, I think it's important to begin with knowing how it is that we learn. Okay. We learn by example, right? So that's a big piece of conditioning. We learn by example, monkey see, monkey do. If you look at the child, how he learns to walk, how he learns to talk, you learn, that's why we have different accents, different dialects, because it is based on the people around you, on your environment. We learn by example, okay? We also learn through patterns and repetition. Our mind very much finds safety in the familiar, and so patterns and repetition makes things familiar. So we will be touching upon that as well. But first of all, I want you to get curious about what examples you have in your life around wellness, how to get happy, how to get healthy, how to solve whatever problem it is that you are focusing on. Right? Now, I also want to just quickly mention with regards to the problems that we focus on here when in regards to wellness, right? So it's healthy in body and mind. But I do want to say that when it comes to health in body and mind, because it is important to me ethically and responsibility-wise, is that when we're talking about problems here, for some of you, it's going to be, like I'm having problems in my marriage, or I'm having, problems with my imposter syndrome, with my business, or whatever it is. But some of you are going to have some very serious physical problems here, right? Or addictions or whatever. The point is that it is important for me to note that, first of all, you get a doctor, a licensed doctor, to eliminate some options of what it could be, so that it's not viral, it's not bacterial, whatever problem it is, like if you're having a physical health problem, you got to make sure first that it's not a medical, physical problem. That being said, the problems that I am going to be, that will be relevant here, are mental, psychological, behavioral, relational, and psychosomatic. Now, psychosomatic is to do with the mind and the body. Okay, so it does have physical manifestations. I want to also mention that includes, if you look up psychosomatic, I'm looking for my notes, I'm trying to find it. Psychosomatic, like physical manifestations of psychological, emotional things. By the way, it is very much often rooted in emotion, stress, is probably the leading cause of death in the world, by the way. I could probably look up that stat for you quite quickly. But psychosomatic wise, it could be autoimmune. It could be, I mean, there've been connections with stress being, a cause in cancer, in autoimmunes, in many physical diseases and illnesses. So when I say psychosomatic, it's not just like IBS, for example, but IBS as well, psychosomatic. There's a lot of knowledge that we are not privy to. So I want to say that here I'm generalizing things, but it is easier, obviously, one-on-one to help you really get to the root of what the problems are. But most of you here, I believe, are coming for the emotional, relational, psychological kind of problems that may often have symptoms in the physical too. Okay. So, learning by example. What examples do you have in your life right now of someone who has overcome the problem that you are struggling with? Do you have examples of that? Are there people around you? What are the examples that you have? That's something that I'd like you to kind of get curious on. And for those of you who don't have a good example, I'm going to share with you my journey, so that you kind of know why to listen to me and why I'm a consultant and a mentor. I see lived experience to be the probably best qualification anyone can have. I like to use the example of business, right? So if you wanted to learn how to have a successful business, would you go and study an MBA, let's say, where the professor is very passionate about business? He has studied it his whole life and he's teaching about what he's studied and what he's learned? Or would you prefer to go and do a mentorship program with Richard Branson, the business mogul, self-made billionaire? Which option would you go for? So I think many of us go and study the MBA, but if we had this option of going and learning from Richard Branson and being mentored by him, having access to him and his billionaire buddies and all of his insights and everything, then I think we'd probably choose him, right? And so I would like to liken myself to Richard Branson in this situation. I am the self-made billionaire, but with regards to wellness, okay? So I struggled for many, many years with my own health. It was mental health predominantly that I really, really struggled with, but it did have a physical impact as well. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, borderline personality disorder, and irritable bowel syndrome in 2010. Now, post-traumatic stress disorder, for those of you that don't know, has very physical symptoms. And so I was struggling a lot with panic attacks, rage outbursts, tics, involuntary kind of spasms and muscle things, night terrors, night sweats. It was really, really rough. I was terrified. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what was happening. So someone gave me this label, PTSD. Okay, cool. I know that that's something to do with trauma. I know, obviously, that I've been through something horrific. But not understanding what was happening with myself made it that much worse, right? And so I went the traditional route, traditional therapy, meds, treatments. It benefited a little bit. There was, a little bit of help here and there. The meds weren't that helpful. They didn't make a huge difference. like sleeping meds. I think the first night it knocked me out, but then that was it. It didn't work anymore after that. Anxiety meds felt too strong, and then they made me feel funny. And until I found the right antidepressants, it was trial and error until one, the side effects. It's like it's a mess. And therapy, traditional therapy, I find it to be very problem oriented. You focus a lot on the problem, where you're at, how you got there. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. And the main idea behind psychotherapy, traditional psychotherapy, is that the therapist helps you bring the unconscious and the subconscious to your conscious, to your awareness. And through doing that, you become more self-aware. But I find that is very good to an extent. It is helpful to an extent. Studies have also shown that around 50% of the people who would benefit from therapy go to therapy. And then from the 50% of people that actually go to therapy, they find any benefit from it. Like, these numbers are not great numbers, right? It's literally 50-50 if you're going to get any benefit from going to traditional therapy, if you even bother to go. So I really felt that we could do better, that there was a very, very big room for improvement here, as you can see. So I struggled also with a few other pieces of therapy, of traditional therapy, that there was this distance between me and the therapist, that the boundaries were very, very strict and rigid, meaning I was having to bare my soul and they weren't allowed to share anything about themselves. Now, I do understand the ethics and the responsibility around that in certain situations. But again, there are some people that then became a hindrance to the process. It's very hard to trust someone when they won't open up to you and you have nothing, nothing about them. And then there's also a whole inferiority thing around them, like they're better than me, they don't, I'm the one with a problem and they don't have any problems, and that's BS, because they're human and we all have our problems. So as you can see, there are a few issues around that too, and the fact that I had to wait between sessions to actually get the help that I needed. So what I needed didn't exist at the time, and that is why I came up with the selfish system. I eventually took matters into my own hands. I educated myself on the self, on this system, how this works, and I came up with a model. How it worked was that in 2016, I realized I wanted to help other people, and that I had to help myself first. So I was intrinsically motivated to help myself. I found what motivated me to make a change, to do things differently. I had been very inspired at the time by examples. I consciously, deliberately looked for examples of people who had transformed their lives, who had changed their lives, who had done things differently. I read autobiographies. I was watching TED Talks. I was immersing myself in self-help, self-development gurus and documentaries, and literally, like, I was all in. And yeah, learning by example, that's how we learn. And so I made sure that I surrounded myself, immersed myself in examples of people who had changed their lives. By the way, recommendation of, if anyone here likes reading, there's a great autobiography called The Son of Hamas, and it had a profound impact on me, how this man changed. And it's not even just, it's on a profound level. Okay, so then when I realized I wanted to help people and I had to help myself, I got sober. I call it my rebirth. I'd been struggling with a drinking problem throughout all of the other struggles. I was self-medicating. And I got sober. I finally woke up one day and cold turkey, quit drinking. And then I realized that I wanted to solve big problems. So I immediately signed up for a master's in organizational behavior and development. to learn how to be a professional problem solver and solve problems. And I applied what I was learning to society as an organization, as opposed to a business or a company. And I did come to the conclusion that the root cause of society's problems and the world problems is rooted in trauma and conditioning. And so that was what I was going to pursue next, a PhD in collective trauma. But then I got pregnant and I had my babies because I also fell in love. It's funny, once we start taking aligned action, and we start connecting with ourselves and really deliberately, consciously making effort to prioritize ourselves and our health and our happiness, then things start falling into place. And I achieved my lifelong dream of becoming a mom and of having a good, healthy relationship. And then COVID hit. And I said, okay, I'm going to postpone my PhD again, and I will start helping people solve their own problems, because I realized that this is an organization too. This is a system, right? So I literally adapted the business consulting problem-solving model that consultants use when they go into big companies and solve big problems. And I adapted it to be applicable to the individual. And so it's a two-tier model. And as I said, we will dive into that tomorrow. But the main goal here is, the main idea is to help people solve problems efficiently, effectively, so that they don't have to be so disempowered. Because I do believe that society really does promote and perpetuate this disempowerment. You can't find the answers. You can't figure things out for yourself. You have to go to a doctor. You have to go to a therapist. You have to go to a psychiatrist. You have to go to a specialist, because we don't understand how this works. We're not taught. We're not given a manual. We're not taught in schools how your nervous system is regulated and what happens when it's dysregulated, and how to regulate it, and how to communicate effectively in relationships, how to communicate with yourself so that you understand what it is even happening, so that you know what to communicate in a relationship. We're not taught any of that, right? Which is why I call it the selfish system, because it is about the self. It is about understanding yourself, which leads me to my next piece. The problem it is that you're struggling with, it's not really a problem. It is a symptom, usually, in general. It's the first lesson that we had in our practicum in my master's, right? It's that the problems are symptoms of deeper underlying problems. There is a root cause for this symptom that we're struggling with. And in our society today, we very much focus on the symptoms. Okay? Oh, you have anxiety, you're struggling with anxiety. Okay, cool. Here's a pill for it. Let's suppress that. Let's silence that symptom. Problem solved, right? No. The problem isn't solved. The symptom is silenced and suppressed. The problem is still there. So what then happens is that the problem will try and find another way to manifest, because this system is designed to communicate. There's a feedback loop, and symptoms are there for a reason. They are signals. They are alarm bells that are saying, hey, come focus on this. There's like, if you have stomach pain, you'll go to the doctor and he'll say, is it here? Is it here? Where, it's important information. Symptoms are very important information. How does a doctor diagnose a problem? By analyzing the symptoms. You have to know what the symptoms are. It is crucial to diagnosing the problem, right? And so your emotions, your behaviors, your patterns, your habits, whatever the struggle is, it's all symptoms, and it is all important information. Okay? And so we don't want to suppress them. We don't want to suppress the symptoms. We don't want to silence the symptoms. They're useful. They're important. We need to listen to them. And so that is the first little shift that I will invite you to think about. What does it change? How does it change? Does it feel different to now view your problem as a symptom? Right? I want you to sit with that one for a second. Whatever it is that you're struggling with, is it an addiction? Is it anxiety? Is it a relationship thing? Is it anger? Is it self-doubt? Is it a harsh inner critic? It's all symptoms. Self-sabotage, it's a symptom. There's something else that's going on, okay? And a reminder as well that our mind really likes patterns. So it finds safety in the familiar. So whatever is familiar, the mind is going to kind of lean towards doing that again and again and again. Like we live in like a loop with certain things, right? Because it's safe to the system. Now, I did want to invite this other little perspective shift. I like analogies. I love analogies. I find them very helpful. So I want you to imagine, okay, that you are in your house and there is someone attacking you, running at you, kicking the door down, running at you, screaming and shouting, screaming and shouting, and they're speaking in a foreign language. They're shouting something at you in a foreign language, and you have no idea what it is that they're saying. This is pretty terrifying, right? Someone is going at you, screaming their head off in a foreign language. You've got no clue what's going on. Fear of the unknown. This is terrifying, okay? So what do? Call up the police, say, help me, I don't know what to do. This crazy person screaming at me, okay? This is how we are conditioned, socially conditioned, because of our lack of knowledge, to react to symptoms. Symptoms coming at us, screaming their heads off in a foreign language. We don't know what they're saying. We don't understand what it is that they want from us. We don't know that language, right? The language of emotion, the language of sensation, the language of feeling, the language of behavior. We're not well versed in that language. We're not taught that language. So we freak the fuck out. We freak out, and that just amplifies it all. It makes it all that much more chaotic and that much harder. And we really struggle when we don't know what to do in a situation. Okay, which is why I like having a framework. You know what to do. You have a strategy, right? Takes away a lot of the knowing what's happening, understanding that language, and that's going to completely change the reaction to the situation, right? And then having a strategy and a framework to be able to know how to tackle that. So what this, instead, like calling the police is literally us going to a shrink or going, to a doctor and getting some pills. It's like they're just going to take the person away and silence them, right? But it's not going to stop the next person from coming screaming and shouting and attacking us. Like it doesn't actually solve the problem. There's a problem. There's a reason that these people are coming and screaming at us. The way to heal, the way to solve the problem is not to silence them and not to panic. It's to listen to them. It is to say, shh, okay, I'm here. Calm down. Let's try and calm down a second. What are you saying? Let's listen. I'm willing to learn your language because I want to help you. I want to figure out what's wrong. I want to understand why you're screaming. Why are you so upset? Instead of judging this person that is running at you, screaming, we're approaching this with compassion. We're approaching this as from a humane, kind, compassionate place of, this person is reaching out to me and they're like struggling. They're in trouble. There is something going on. So let's listen. And that is what I invite you to do with yourselves. When anxiety comes up, when anger comes up, when you're getting triggered, when the pain comes up, whatever the problem is, how can you shift that approach to the problem? Saying, oh, you're a symptom. Oh, you're struggling. Oh, okay, let's calm down. Let's listen. Let's learn your language. Let's figure out what it is that you're trying to tell me. Because that's what's going to reach a solution. That's going to be conducive towards solving the problem. Silencing you, being scared of you, panicking, calling the cops, getting rid of you, that's not actually going to solve the problem in the long run. That's just going to get you to like, leave me alone right now. Okay. That's the first piece that I'd like to invite you to kind of approach yourself and your problems differently. I actually quite like problems nowadays. I get excited because the thing is that problems are actually opportunities. Oh, now I get to learn another language. Now I get to learn something that's going to make that person happier. It's gonna calm them down. I'm gonna figure out another problem. I'm going to get to this next level of like compassion and happiness and health and well-being and wellness. So every time a challenge comes or a symptom pops up, it's like, okay, what do we get to learn today? What do we get to work on now? Because it's constant. There's always going to be something. Always. Whoever tells you that there isn't, like at one day it's going to stop, there's going to be no more screaming, there's going to be no more shouting, there's going to be no more problems, they're lying to you. They just are. And so I feel that it's important and it's relevant to get well versed in the language of the self so that you can achieve the kind of health and happiness that you really do deserve and that you have available to you. This is something else that we're not taught. We're not told that things can be good. They can be really good. Like they can be way better. All we're shown is, the rich and the famous, and we think that they have it all amazing. And how many rich and famous struggle with addictions, with bad relationships? I mean, we all read the tabloids, although half of them are probably sensationalized and false, but we hear about the suicides, Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain. We see all the drug problems, right? Like that's not an indication of health and happiness. So fame and fortune isn't the way. It's not. I think who was it? Ace Ventura, Jim Carrey. I think he talks about this a lot. I know he's gone a bit funny, but he talks a lot about the fact that it's not all it seems to be. I think a lot of celebrities talk about that. Justin Bieber, Billie Eilish, the new ones, they talk about it a lot. The young ones, that it really isn't the way it looks. And so there's a very big difference between what we think things look like and the actual truth, which leads me to another point. I wanted to share this with you guys as well because it is very important. I'm just looking for a prop. Hold on. Okay. I will use this remote. How you approach things, how you look at things, how you perceive and interpret things matters. Now, some of you may be familiar with this. I didn't make this up. If you look at this from your standpoint, you see a rectangle with buttons and gray and a turquoise button and some numbers and a screen, right? Now, if I were to move you to 90-degree angle to here, now you see a white stripe. So if someone was standing here, they'd say, I see a rectangle with buttons. And you'll say, no, 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 it's a white stripe. And they're like, no, depending on where you're standing, your truth will be different. Your reality will be different. If you see things from this way, you experience one reality. But if you move here, your reality will change. Your experience will change. What you see will be different. But in order for your reality to be different, you need to do something differently. You need to move from here to here. And that is the deliberate effort that is required to change the reality. If you stay doing the same thing, looking at things the same way, thinking about things in the same way, perceiving it in the same way, interpreting it in the same way, and that is all based on your beliefs as well, how you believe. If you are rigid in your belief, this is the only way to see. This is the only truth. This is the only way to experience life and reality, then that is true. If that is what you believe, then that is what will be. But if you are open-minded, and if you are willing to reconsider your belief, your mindset, if you're willing to say, you know what, maybe there's a different way of doing it. Maybe there's a different way of seeing it. Maybe there's a different way of believing. Maybe I can believe differently about whatever it is. Then you can slowly shift over here. And then you'll be like, oh, shit. Wow, things are different now. Now I see things differently. And now things are going to start feeling different, right? Like imagine if the screen, right? Imagine if that had a really horrific picture on it. Your experience of reality will be scary and horrifying. And imagine if this was just really calming to you, right? So instead of horrifying and horrific, you'll be like, if I do things differently, the same thing can actually be calming. It can be a completely different experience because I'm approaching it from a completely different angle, right? And so that is the power of the intentionality, the conscious, deliberate effort, the decision-making to move. Now, learning to move is going to take repetition. We like patterns until it feels safe to do things differently, because if you've been doing this your whole life, it's going to feel very scary and threatening to your system to do something a different way. So you're going to be resisting it. You're going to look for every excuse not to move, okay? Because our mind really likes the familiar, because that's safe. And we are wired, we are designed to survive, to stay safe. That is literally what we're designed to do. Stay safe. So anything outside of our comfort zone, anything different to what we're used to doing is going to be considered by our psyche as a threat. So, for example, if someone says going on a walk every morning is going to make you feel so much better, that's going to be really hard for you to do if you've never done it before. It's going to take deliberate effort to practice a new practice, doing something new. Same thing for any kind of habit. Why is it so hard to change our habits? Because our habits, ironically, even if they're bad for us and they're unhealthy and they make us sad and they make us hate ourselves and they make us suffer, it's a habit, which means it's familiar, which means our psyche perceives it as safe. Thanks, psyche. It is really annoying and frustrating, but it is what it is. This is the way this is wired to work. There is reason to it. There is, reason to the madness. There's method to the madness, but basically it does bite us in the butt often, right? So when it comes to like habits, creating new habits are going to be resisted. breaking old habits is going to be resisted. So we're up against mental resistance. Okay. That's a whole other thing. I have a masterclass all about just changing habits. But once you understand this, then it makes it easier, because you're not just kicking yourself saying, what's wrong with me? Why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep behaving this way? Why do I keep doing something that I know I don't want to be doing? Why do I keep binge drinking, binge eating, comfort eating, binge watching TV shows? Why do I keep scrolling? Oh my God, why do I keep scrolling? You know, it's like, why do we do the things that we don't want to do? Why do I keep shouting when I don't want to be shouting? Why do I keep getting triggered by this thing when I don't want to be triggered? You know, like, it's patterns, safety and familiar. It's just the way we're wired. But once you understand that, it is way easier to change and to heal and to create new habits and to do things differently, to find healthier ways, to start creating the changes that, you know, are going to serve you better, so that you do feel happier, so that you are content, so that you do start building on this confidence and trust in yourself. You know, like, if you keep doing things that aren't serving you well and you feel stuck in that, you're not going to trust yourself. You're not going to have confidence in yourself. And that's the definition of being happy with yourself, right? According to dictionary on Google. That's the definition of happiness. Contentment and enjoyment, and happy with someone is the confidence and trust in someone. So the next piece about harnessing your potential is believing in yourself, that you can. If your whole life, though, you've been struggling and stuck in these habits, then that's tough. That's a tough thing to think about differently. How can I suddenly believe in myself if my whole life I haven't got any proof? I don't have any examples. Another piece is the negativity bias, right? So we have a built-in mechanism, a survival mechanism called the negativity bias, that actually has us wired to focus on the negative. So we are hardwired to focus on the negative and ignore the positive, which means, again, that it is not your fault that you keep kicking yourself and focusing on your failures and your, you know, shortcomings and etc. This negative self-perception, it's literally hardwired into us, but we can override it. Good news, neuroplasticity, here to save the day. We can rewire. Okay, so again, with this familiar piece, like, imagine you're walking in a forest and you've been walking this path, it's well worn. So you know, even if there are snakes there and there's cockroaches and rats and you hate it, that's the safe path. Everything else is like trees and bushes and you don't know what's over, like, that's all scary. Like, there's no path. You know this path, but this path, you've come here because this path isn't serving you anymore. This path, you know, or at least you really, really wish and hope could be better, right? The experience of walking down this path that you know very well, that you've been walking for so long, you don't like it. You want better. And so it's about creating a new path. But that will require the deliberate effort to decide where, how, what that looks like, and then go for it. And it's going to be really hard at first, because you've got to break through that fear. You've got to break through the unknown. You've got to understand all that resistance is going to be playing against you and fighting it. So it does take this willpower, this intrinsic motivation, right? There is motivation that is required to do things differently, to do things better. But you can. It is possible. You can, like, science has proven that you can create a new pathway. And the beauty is that when you consciously create that pathway, you can make sure that it has fences and no snakes and no rats and no cockroaches. You can, you can get your exterminator to come and fumigate it. Like, you can make sure that that path is going to be so good, so much fun. Yes, life will throw you curveballs. Yes, you will get the occasional snake or, I don't know, monkey flying by, but you'll be able to handle it because you're going to be educated, empowered, and equipped to handle whatever path you create and you want for yourself and you choose for yourself. But it really is about giving you the tools to navigate that. It is an endeavor, it is a pursuit, it is a lifelong endeavor and a lifelong pursuit, but you might as well do what you can to make it better, right? Because you have one life. Not a dress rehearsal, it is the real deal. This is your one life, right? And so what is it going to take for you to do things differently? What is it going to take for you to believe that you can do things differently? Some of you here, I think, will already know that you can, and you believe it. It is just about getting the tools. Awesome. Tomorrow, we're going to get some tools. That's great. But for some of you, it really is about checking in. Do you believe that you can? Because I want to tell you that you can. And it's not just me walking proof that you can. There are many others like me. I'm not special. I just found a way to harness my potential. And now I'm trying to share that and teach that so that others can do the same. Because it is doable. It is possible. There's a great TED Talk by Sammy Rangel that I'm honored to call him my friend today. We connected through social media because I was so just moved by his TED Talk. It was so profound. Trigger warning, it is very difficult to watch and listen to. His story is really hard, but he's the kind of person, he is someone who inspired me. I was like, if he can change, then I can change. And that is something that I do really recommend for you guys, is find examples of people who have been through as bad as you, worse than you, huge adversity, and that have succeeded, that have transformed their lives, that have made it out, that have healed themselves. Because that's what's going to help you believe, because we do learn by example. If we see someone, like as a child, how do you know? How did you know as a child that you could walk? Because everyone around you was walking. Right? It really is about the examples that we choose to have. So consume consciously. It's another tip that I have for you guys. Go through your social media, have a look, make like an intentional decision to have a look at what it is that you're consuming and who are the people that you have around you. What kind of influence are they having on you? What kind of examples are they setting? Because we lead by example, whether we like it or not, right? Because we learn by example, we also lead by example. One of the biggest motivators for me to get better and get healthy is because I decided I wanted to lead by example, which meant that I had to walk the walk, right? I had to help myself so that I could help others, because I wanted to be able to lead by example. So what example is being set for you by the people around you? And you can get deliberate, conscious, and intentional about the examples that you have. If, for example, on Instagram, you're following supermodels and they're setting an example that is making you feel bad about yourself, don't follow them. If you have friends around you that smoke and drink a lot and you don't want to smoke and drink a lot, maybe take a break, put some boundaries, say, hey, I want to stop smoking and drinking. Personal decision. You do you, I do me. But if we, if you want to hang out, then got to respect my boundaries for now, because it's going to take me a minute until I can be around it again and not be influenced by it. Because it does take a minute. When I got sober, I did eventually feel that I didn't want to be around it. If it's hard for me to go to a bar and not drink, then I didn't go to the bar. But it's about being selfish in a good way, right? It is about prioritizing yourself and what is important to you, so that you can know better and do better and be better and feel better. Because like they say on the airplanes, put on the oxygen mask on yourself first, so that you can then help other people and put oxygen masks on your kids and whoever else needs help. If you don't put that on yourself first, you're going to be useless. You're going to pass out. Right? There are so many people around us that need us, that want us around, that love us. It's our responsibility to look after ourselves. No one else is going to look after us. As tough as that sounds. It is no one else's responsibility. As a child, our parents, our caregivers, it was their responsibility to look after us and meet our needs. And as an adult, now it is up to us to meet our own needs. And with that, we get a chance and an opportunity to reparent ourselves, right? If some of our needs were unmet in childhood, as many of us, it's the case with many of us, we get to do differently. We get to be the parent and the adult that we needed, because now we're older, we're in different brain waves, we're far more conscious, we can become more self-aware, and we can actually do things differently. We don't have to be operating on the same programming that we have been operating on until now. We can get aware of the programming, the conditioning, and we can say, oh, that's not serving us. That path, don't want to walk that path anymore. And then you start realizing as well where you picked up the beliefs, where you picked up the patterns, where you picked up like the things, right? It was the examples that were set for us by the people around us. It was what we were taught, what we were led to believe, what we were made to feel, all these different pieces, right? So when it comes to wellness, state of being health in body and mind, especially as a result of deliberate effort, it starts with you making a decision to take deliberate effort. And we'll be ending with that on day 3. I'll be helping with that piece. So I'm just thinking if I covered everything for today, I think that will wrap us up for now. Tomorrow we will be covering the model. For those of you who feel comfortable sharing, please share in the group your takeaways, your main takeaways from today. What it is that landed for you, what is something that was new for you, any aha moments. I'm very curious to see what landed. So let me know. And I shall see you tomorrow for day 2. And in the meantime, have a wonderful day. And I'll see you then.